Hi, welcome back to the Counterfeit Emotions podcast. I'm Curtis Morley, and I'm an emotionologist. I'm so excited to continue this journey to find peace with you. And this week, we have Martin Palmer on the show. Martin Palmer is a therapist. He works with couples, he does individual therapy, and he's gone through some things himself that have led him to this path. Formerly was a musician and recording artist, and now is helping people understand their emotions. And today we're going to talk about some really key things. The first is distress tolerance. If you haven't heard this term, pay attention. This one is fantastic for helping you navigate the everyday aspects of life. We're also going to talk about how to become irreversibly untriggerable. We're going to talk about anger and advocacy, and we're going to talk about the emotion bus and how those counterfeit emotions, you don't have to carry them around on the bus. All you need to do is pull over and pick up the authentic. We're so excited. Thanks for being here, Martin.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us, I know in the introduction, some things I forgot to say. You're also working on holding your breath for 3 minutes.
Oh,
I thought that was a fun part. And you've got a wife, Laura, and your father of 5 children.
yeah.
So that's fantastic. So I'm guessing the holding your breath comes from snorkeling. Is that?
Yeah. So I've spent a good amount of my life in Hawaii, and so I got into free diving,
Wow.
snorkeling, spearfishing. Love it. It's just you're in another world. Kind of like Avatar, The Way of Water. But yeah, really, it does feel like you're in another world, and it's a really high mode of meditation for me, because you are using different senses it's like the faders on a mixer board. You're going to turn down hearing probably, and you're using your skin to take in your world a lot more than we are aware of right now walking around on land. It's just an incredible experience. So yeah, but related to therapy, a breath hold is also really a great way to practice distress tolerance, so that you're not always seeking something more comfortable, so that you get used to being okay with some discomfort. So that's another big motivation is why I'm working on my breath hold.
Let's go deeper into that, because I think that's a really important piece, and it's something that's accessible to everybody, but
Yeah.
so few people understand the importance of breath. Tell us more. Like you talked about distress tolerance, meaning that if I can hold my breath, which breath is the essence of life, right?
Yeah.
If I can hold my breath, then I can be in a place where even though the world may be distressful, I'm okay. Is that kind of the thinking behind that?
Yeah, exactly. You said it succinctly. That's exactly the point. But what's appealing about getting used to distress? Nothing. That's essentially like, I'm good with torture, but that's not what I'm talking about. Distress tolerance is the practice of making fewer things torturous to you.
Okay. And how does that work exactly?
Well, with the example of a breath hold, let's say right now, anybody who's listening or watching, if we said, okay, start holding your breath. After about 30 seconds, the mind would be just screaming, okay, breathe. You need to breathe. You need to breathe out the carbon dioxide and you need to take in oxygen. It's usually the message to get rid of the carbon dioxide that we're not used to, because you have plenty of oxygen. So there's nothing damaging about holding your breath for 3 minutes, we'll say. But the brain is being hypervigilant. So it's sending a message that's unnecessary to try to protect. So if you get used to 30 seconds and then 45 seconds, a minute, then what's actually changing inside you is not really anything with carbon dioxide or oxygen. That's not so significant as quieting the unnecessary pain messages that the brain sometimes gets fixated on.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're going around in the world being a little too sensitive, too touchy, then we're not living a balanced life with comfort and discomfort. And I think most metropolitan societies like ours, we're a little too comfortable for our own good, for our mental health good. So it just works in increments. To answer your question more succinctly, how does that work? What does it look like? It works like incrementally training your brain.
Gotcha. And it's fun that you say that we in a metropolitan society live very comfortable lives, and I believe that's true. I look back at like Seneca, one of the Stoics. He's actually my favorite Stoic, and Seneca had a practice. So this is ancient Greece, right? This is not modern day America with self-driving cars and air conditioning and all running toilets, like,
or pineapples,
or even pineapples.
You want a fruit from South America, you can have it.
Yeah, there's so many comforts. And Seneca would do a practice where he was basically nobility in the Greek society, and he would do a practice where he would deprive himself of his comforts for a time. And it actually ended up saving his life because of his views in government and his trying to change policies. Someone tried to kill him. Someone tried to poison Seneca through his food, but because he was fasting and depriving himself of that food, it saved his life. He didn't end up getting poisoned. But even back in Greece, even ancient Greece, without all of the comforts of today's modern life, Seneca found the need to also do that same thing. Similar to holding the breath is fasting, and he would take off his noble robes and togas and all of the things, and he would dress as a commoner, and he would do all the things that were outside of that comfort that he had espoused for most of his life.
Yeah, I love that. Fasting is a great one, and maybe I'll make a little unnecessary disclaimer. If you're going to practice distress tolerance, I think it's best to choose something that's not truly damaging. Like there's nothing damaging about holding your breath for a minute. There's nothing damaging about long-term fasting. In fact, these things provide improvement in your health long-term. Right?
Yeah.
So choose something that is not truly damaging, but that can help you retrain your brain.
And what would be some other examples of, you've got holding your breath, you've got fasting. What would be examples of distress tolerance training that people could do?
A lot of people are into fitness, but maybe it's a type of fitness that you're not doing right now. So if you're a runner, try strength training. Or if you are a lifter and you hate cardio, try long distance running. So something like that. It feels uncomfortable, but you know that it's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the neuroscience behind that is fascinating, because the ACC, the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, it literally grows every time you are uncomfortable. And they're now equating the size of the ACC to the longevity of life. Yeah. That the more discomfort you have, the longer you live. And that might sound counterintuitive, like, wait, so I'm going to live a really long time in discomfort.
Yeah.
But the truth is, going back to the weightlifting example, is if, let's just say I put 45 plates on the side, and that's hard, and I get to the point where 135 total weight is no longer hard. that's the ACC actually stops growing. And so it's not the activity, it's the discomfort of the activity
Yeah.
that creates the physical growth of part of your brain, a critical part of your brain.
Yeah, I love that. And even there's something significant to whether or not you choose it, right? Like if I was somehow like put in a prison where I'm forced to lift weights,
Mm-hmm.
I would not have the same benefits psychologically as if I'm choosing to lift weights.
Ooh, go more into that.
Well, I believe that that was found in the ACC research. Is that if you are comfortable with something, um, or if you're forced into something, it they didn't see the same growth as if you were choosing something that you're uncomfortable with.
Mm.
That's really all I can say on that topic.
So
But
if someone's coercing you to put not just the 45s, but another 10 on, and you're doing it in that way, it doesn't enhance or grow the ACC.
yeah, I mean, going to your theme of counterfeit emotions, what would be a parallel emotion to resentment? Because if I'm resenting this, oh, I'm so fit, you know,
Mm.
I'm lifting, I'm getting stronger. What would be the parallel to resentment? Maybe enjoyment, or
So the resentment would fall kind of in two categories. One would be anger, and the other would be victim or victimhood.
yeah,
And victim is the counterfeit of victor, being able to, instead of saying, why is this happening to me,
yeah,
saying, why is this happening for me? So instead of saying, why do I have to do this? Say, how do I get to do this? And yeah, you're still pushing up the weights, you're still benching, and hopefully you add 45s onto the 45s and you keep growing and growing.
yeah,
But not only do your muscles grow, but your brain grows, and changing that mentality from victim to victor of this is for my good, even if I didn't choose it, even if it's something that I didn't want in my life, it still can be for my good.
if you have the attitude. Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of what Viktor Frankl wrote about his
Yes.
psychology ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In logotherapy, Viktor Frankl is one of my heroes.
yeah,
Truly. I don't, yeah. I, I, I think that because of Viktor Frankl, we have a whole new awareness, a whole new level of awareness. It's so easy to look at pain and just say, well, pain is bad. And I think for most of us, like this was me until I was over 40 years old, I always thought pain was bad. And if I'm feeling pain, I don't get to feel love. I don't get to feel joy. There's a wall, and the two are completely exclusive. But I learned that, due in part to Viktor Frankl, that this side of the wall is not pain. By definition, the absence of joy is misery. I get to choose which side I put my pain on. I can bury it underneath the sludge and tar of misery, or I can put it on the side of joy. I can have pain and joy, pain and love exist in the same place, but that's my choice. I get to choose, and most of us by default say, well, pain feels like misery, so they must just go together. I'm just going to put them over here. But pain is inevitable, and misery is optional.
yeah,
We get to choose. We get to choose if we're going to be miserable, whether or not there's pain.
yeah,
We can even be miserable in discomfort. I know a lot of people that are very miserable in their comfort, not
right.
discomfort. We can be miserable in comfort. And I know a lot of people that are.
Yeah, I think we all have some tendency to that.
Yeah.
That's why billionaires are still seeking the next thing.
Yeah. And have you read the book? Have you read the book "Don't Believe Everything You Think" by Joseph Wen?
No.
Brilliant book,
Yeah.
so good. Yeah, I am on my second or third time going through it right now, and it's incredible. But one of the principles that he teaches is that our thoughts create our suffering. That it's not actually life, it's not pain, it's not the experiences we get to go through every single day. It's our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And tying that to the Buddhist philosophy that attachment is the root of all suffering.
Yeah.
Attachment comes from our thoughts, and therefore we suffer, we're miserable through our thoughts, which gives me a lot of hope because we can change our thoughts. We can't change the pain of life. That is going to happen. It's inevitable. But we can change our thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually that's maybe this is a good segue into this topic that I love talking about, but the our thoughts are substitutable pretty easily, right? Like if and I think that that's true also of certain emotions. We can replace some emotions with other emotions, which I love your idea of counterfeit emotions because that's what's happening to a negative end, whether or not people are aware of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think I love talking about how some emotions are primary emotions and some are secondary emotions. I don't know if we want to go into this right now, but
Let's do it.
that's
Like
just
when
made
you
me
brought
think
up
of
the
that.
idea that all emotions are secondary emotions, I'm like, okay, we have got to talk about that.
Oh,
So yeah, let's dive in. Let's get it.
okay. Well, so there's a common idea that there are certain primary emotions.
And name some of those. Name some of those primary emotions.
Anger, joy, maybe jealousy, disgust.
Disgust, yeah. Yeah, there's this inner circle of emotions that are these primary ones, and you see the emotions charts.
Yeah, the wheels,
the wheels,
emotional wheels.
yeah, the emotion wheels, and they have that inner circle called primary emotions.
Yeah,
and keep going.
Yeah, so the primary emotions are the ones that we would expect to find in any human anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the secondary emotions, people usually say these are the ones that are more nuanced, or for example, anger. That if that's a primary emotion, then maybe maybe that's not a good example. I need an emotion wheel pillow right here.
How about joy? Joy is primary, right?
Yeah.
And with joy, you have all sorts of different pieces of joy. You've got excitement, you've got pleasure, you've got all these different aspects. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's these secondary emotions. But what I've seen is that some people, they quickly go to a secondary emotion and they don't pay attention to the primary emotion. And I would suggest that any emotion can be a primary emotion and any emotion can be a secondary emotion. So for example, let's say I'm feeling sad about a missed opportunity of connecting with someone I love. I'm sad about that. But I could, using my thoughts, go almost immediately to anger, using anger as a secondary emotion. What is the primary emotion that I am having? Sadness, but I'm not allowing myself to have it. I went to anger. And I see this over and over again as a therapist. And so I would suggest that you could use almost any emotion as a secondary emotion or like a distracting emotion. Let's say I am feeling vulnerable. I might use joy in the form of humor to deflect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or what's another one? I'm just making these up. You can make them up with me.
being the nice guy or placating or yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
it feels more safe to be the nice guy than to be the one that is assertive or
Hmm.
something. Someone who shares their true primary emotions.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is this is just a question that's off the top of my head. What do you think is the benefit of staying with our primary emotions or finding our primary emotions?
I think that like if we look at the primaries in the framework of counterfeit emotions, there's four criteria to know if you're feeling authentic emotions or counterfeits. And I want to put a caveat. Even though they're named authentic and they're named counterfeit, there's no such thing as a bad emotion. There's no such thing.
Mm,
Every emotion at its core, at the very bare minimum, brings a message. So to say this emotion is bad, I don't want to feel you, I'm not going to go there, that's not helpful. That's not useful. But every emotion has a purpose, if nothing else than just to bring a message of awareness. That, like for example, anger brings the message of there's an injustice or there's danger. There's only two reasons you'll ever feel anger: danger, like the bear's coming at you in the woods, or injustice. And it's a perceived injustice because it may or may not be a true injustice. It may be that glass of milk that's like an inch lower than your brother's, and
mm,
you're a little kid and like, Mom, his milk is more than mine.
anger.
And and so, but it brings that message. It brings the message of, hey, there's something that is either dangerous or an injustice. And when we can recognize that secondary and say, you know what? I can look at its twin. The twin of anger is advocacy, and that's the authentic emotion. Advocacy says, I see the injustice and I'm going to do something about it, but I'm not going to do it in rage. I'm not going to do it in hate. I'm not going to do it in a way that hurts both of us.
Yeah,
Instead, I'm going to advocate. And advocate comes from the Latin word advocare, which means to invite in. Anger says to push away. Advocate says invite in, but they both address injustice. They both go to that core of why am I feeling this? It's because I see an injustice. I can either use that for anger or I can use that for advocacy. And it's still both very motivating, very powerful emotions, very aroused emotions. But the one builds up, the other tears down.
yeah, yeah. I love avocado on tacos. It's really good.
The avocado sauce.
Yeah, you have to pay extra though.
Yeah. $1.50 extra.
Yeah, just nickel and diming you. Yeah, I love that. That's great.
One thing that is really core to the foundation is that, going back to your original question, with those four criteria, their connection, does this emotion connect me? Direction, or yeah, direction, where does this emotion take me? The third one is motivation, and the fourth is valuation. But going back to motivation, every authentic emotion is based into what I call meta emotions that flow through the rest, and that is love and surrender. Whereas the counterfeit emotions are based in fear and control.
Mm,
And if you look at that and say, what is my motivation behind this? You can have the exact same action. But if you look at the motivations, one is based in love and surrender, meaning I'm going to let go of the consequence. The other is based in fear and control.
yeah,
And it can be the exact same action,
yeah. Same behavior.
no difference. And
Yeah,
that's why counterfeit emotions are so sneaky, because they look and act and feel like that original emotion, but then they create these destructive cycles of disconnection in our lives.
yeah. And that's like the similar idea to what I'm saying about secondary emotions. If we use a secondary emotion, that's like using, um, well, it is the same thing. inauthentic emotion or something destructive, like you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I have this theory that I, or maybe it's more like a lens, a way of looking at people for temporarily, is to see what their, I can't use the term primary emotion, but I like looking at people through this lens of what is their default emotion.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people have a default emotion. Um, and for some people, it's harder to see what it is. You just see a behavior. So that person is angry a lot. That person is irritated, irritable.
Mm.
I know all of the words. I can give you various forms of irritated. Irritating, irritation. Just the noun.
You've got the synonym going.
Yeah. But what was I saying? That oh yeah, that I think,
What's at the root?
yeah, people often have this default emotion. So what is the default emotion of a nice guy? It might be fear.
And actually the research shows that. Because nice is the counterfeit of kind. Kind is the authentic emotion. Nice is the people pleaser, placater, doormat, yes man. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear, so there's no conflict. And the primary motivation is to avoid conflict. That's what nice is. Whereas kind's motivation is not just to resolve conflict, but transform conflict into connection, where it doesn't even see conflict anymore. It sees that our differences are so beautiful that we can connect over the differences. And that's what kind is. And if you look at the research, the brain chemicals for feeling kind, for feeling that emotion, you've got oxytocin, you've got serotonin, you've got all these happy drugs. Nice, the number one brain chemical is cortisol. It's the same as fear, that I have to placate you because I'm afraid that if I don't, that you're going to be mad, or you won't think of me as highly, or I'm going to have to, change who I am, be this chameleon just so you like me. And that's based in fear.
Yeah. Do you think in a very matured individual, niceness could come from a different emotion, default emotion? Like, I don't know, like,
Tell me more.
I'm thinking about like a very matured person who is nice, but maybe fear isn't their primary motivation or
Then
emotion.
then that would translate to kind. That, yeah, people that are polite, that that still do kind things,
Yeah.
that's kindness. Whereas nice is, I have to do this. Kind is, I want to do this because I see you.
Mm.
Nice is, I have to do this because I either want you to see me positively, or I don't feel seen, and so I want you to see me. Whereas kind says, I don't need you to see me,
Yeah.
but I do see you. I see you as a divine being, as someone with infinite worth. That, yeah, I'm going to hold the door open for you. I'm going to speak kindly and politely to you. I'm going to do all of those things. But the motivation is very different.
Yeah. Yeah, I do know people like that. And I think that those really matured individuals, they're dynamic. They're also capable of expressing anger, of expressing frustration, but for the most part, they're expressing something kind and gentle with intention.
Yeah.
But when there's an injustice, they're capable of anger.
Yeah. And looking at the framework, they take that anger and they say, thank you, anger. Thank you for showing me this injustice. Now I'm going to go to your twin here, advocacy, and I'm going to advocate. I'm going to take that and I'm going to do it in such a kind way.
Yeah.
Like, this is a fun thing. I've asked thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands by now, this question. And it's okay if you don't know the answer, because most people don't. I didn't. I had to look it up myself. But who is Bobby Seale and Huey Newton?
Don't know.
Don't know. Nobody does. In the tens of thousands of people I've asked, 4 people have known the answer to that. One was a historian, and one actually met them. So that left 2 other people. But let me ask you a very different question. Who is Martin Luther King Jr.?
Yeah, I know.
Everybody knows Martin Luther King Jr. And the question is, why don't you know Bobby Seale and Huey Newton? It's because they were the founders of the Black Panthers. They were the founders of the black militant group that firebombed cars, that killed police officers, that rioted, that destroyed businesses. They saw the injustice, the true injustice of racism. And they said, I'm going to go to the counterfeit. I'm going to anger. And what happened was, it said, oh, this group of people that are colored, they are going to be violent. And then they proved them right. They said, yeah, we're going to do that. And they said, they're going to hurt people. And they said, yeah, we're going to do that. Not, this wasn't a dialogue, but their actions kept saying this cycle. I call it the anger danger cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it works is they saw true racism. They saw this, and it was an absolute injustice. And they said, okay, that's dangerous to us because people are hurting us because of the color of our skin. But then they said, well, that creates danger in us, which then creates anger in us. And our anger, we're going to express that anger, and now it creates danger in the other people. And so this vicious cycle of anger, I call it the anger danger cycle, that my anger creates danger in you, which creates anger in you, which creates danger in me, which creates anger in me, and we just keep going over and over again in this cycle. But the reason every major US city has a Martin Luther King Jr. street, and you can go to the UK and India and they know who Martin Luther King Jr. is because he took that same injustice, that exact same injustice, and he said, I'm not going to hurt people because of this. I'm not going to yell and rage and scream and kill. But I won't stand for this. What I will do is I'll stand at the base of the Lincoln Memorial with 1 million people and decry the injustice. But I'm going to do it in a way that invites in. The number of people that were white that came to the Million Man March was tremendous. It wasn't just all blacks. It was an amazing amount of whites and other races that came because he called them in. He invited them in. The injustice was still there, but he took this path. The Black Panthers took this path. Nobody knows who the Black Panthers are. Everybody knows who Martin Luther King Jr. is because he changed the world. He changed the world. And if we look at that root, yeah, it was injustice. But that same energy can be used to tear down or build up. And that's one of the big differences with counterfeit emotions is, what are you going to use this for?
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the idea. You might know the emotion bus. You're on the emotion bus and you're driving the bus around town. You pull over at the bus stop and anger jumps on, or any of the counterfeits. Let's say lust jumps on, or let's say nice jumps on, right? And instantly the counterfeits, they want to drive the bus. They're like, slide over, I'm driving. And if you let anger drive, it's smashing mailboxes and, crushing through park benches, and it's just like going wherever. And it's this rage monster. You let nice drive the bus, and it comes up to the 4-way stop, and it never leaves the 4-way stop because it's like, no, please you. Oh, no, please you. And you're stuck there, right?
Yeah.
And the idea is that you don't let any of the emotions drive the bus, but instead when you recognize the counterfeit gets on, you say, I've got a seat for you. I'm going to honor you. I'm going to recognize you. Anger, if you're on the bus, great. I've got a seat for you. I'm going to listen to your message, and I'm going to go to the next bus stop, and I'm going to pick up advocacy. And at that bus stop, as soon as advocacy gets on, as soon as the authentic gets on the bus, the counterfeit says, oh, whew, thank you so much. I know advocacy is going to take care of this. Thank you. I can get off now. And advocacy takes the seat of anger on the bus. Or kind gets on, takes the seat of nice. And nice goes, oh, thank you. That is the virtue I actually want to practice. I don't want to be this doormat and this yes man. And it's able to get off the bus because it knows kind is going to take care of it.
Yeah.
When love gets on the bus, lust is like, whew, okay, thanks. This is great. I can get off now. And when you get that authentic emotion on, then the counterfeit, it says, oh, I know this will be taken care of. Whew, I can get off. And it does. You don't even have to ask it. As long as the authentic is on the bus, you don't even have to ask it.
I love that. That's powerful. That's a really great way to deal with those unwanted default emotions that I was talking about.
Yeah.
If someone has a tendency toward anger, add advocacy rather than focusing on managing the anger.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's magical. Like doing this in my own life, it is magical. It's like, I used to be like, okay, I'm mad. And it's this highly aroused emotion. And it's like way up here. People are like, hey, don't be mad. I'm like, what's the alternative? What do I do if I'm not mad? And it's like, hey, calm down. And calm is way down here. Mad is way up here. And instead of saying, okay, I'm going to try and figure out how to bring it all the way down when all this energy is inside of me, instead of that, I'm going to say, you know what? There's an emotion right up here, right with anger, called advocacy. I'm not going to calm down. I'm going to transfer it. And I'm still going to address the injustice, but I'm going to do it with kindness. I'm going to do it with love. I'm going to do it in a way that we connect, that we sit down at the table. That's what I'm going to do. And oh, what a relief. Because the other way was not working. The other way was like, oh, I'm just more mad. Now I'm just repressing the anger. That's all I'm doing. Is trying to calm down. And it was just saying, oh, no, anger's still on the bus. And now it's pretty upset. He's pushing other emotions out of their seats. And yeah, if we send anger to the back of the bus, he's like, no, I'm coming back up.
Yeah. That's great. I think that could be useful in my practice.
Right on. Yeah. What would you say, like, as you look at the people that you help on a daily basis, what would you say is the most common theme when people come to you for therapy?
I think of it as a myriad, right, of presentations. So your question, I need to think about it for a minute. You're asking what's the most common theme? I think it's probably the disparity between what they want, what they think is desirable or the ideal, and their actual behavior. And because, if somebody comes and they're complaining of depression, they often, it's not necessarily that they're behaving in a way to cause the depression, right? That would be a horrible idea to reflect back to them. But they almost always feel that there's some kind of disconnect between their reality and what they want their reality to be. So maybe that's a better way to say it.
So rephrase that.
Okay.
So you're saying that what they want their reality to be versus what reality actually is.
Yeah.
That disparity of saying, well, I'm going to put this in air quotes, I should be at X point in my life. I should be this, or my marriage should be this, or I don't use the word should unless I'm talking about the word should. But is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes. And in fact, for that reason, most therapists could be called changeologists.
Okay.
Right? Where you're an emotionologist.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy is about change. How do you affect second level change? The kind that's almost irreversible. The kind that creates all sorts of first level change. So, yeah, I think a lot of therapists think about their work that way, as being a changeologist, helping to encourage a client to effect change in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And emotionologist is a brand name. It's not a certified degree. Just want to make sure that's clear. And I love what you're saying. Go to the idea of how do you make that change so it is irreversible? How do you make that? Because I know a lot of people, they'll start to feel better. They'll start to change their life, like getting exercise and different things, and they'll start to create these practices. But then as soon as the trigger hits again, then they revert. How do you get to a place of irreversibility?
Well, it might be easier to talk about this if we have an example.
Yeah,
so
please.
What would be an example of something that people struggle with?
I know we met at the UCAP conference, and we have that in common where we help people with pornography. Another example would be, let's just say, since we've been talking about anger, let's talk about, let's say a wife comes into the kitchen and the cupboards are open, right? Because you left the cupboards open, and they're like, oh, why can't you shut the cupboards? And instantly that trigger is like, oh, I need to be mad now because she yelled at me for leaving the cupboards open. And I didn't mean to, I just wasn't thinking, all of the justification for leaving the cupboards open. But all of a sudden now, every time that the cupboards get mentioned, that triggers an emotion inside of me. And so then you work through that and okay, I'm not going to get triggered, but then you're having a really bad day or you're sick, or you go back in the kitchen and you're because you're so sick, you happen to leave the cupboards open again, and your wife walks in and says the same thing, and then all of a sudden the trigger's back. How do you get rid of the trigger?
Well, what was the first question?
Is irreversibility. How do we?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Second level change or irreversibility. In this case, I would probably come up with a practical idea. If there were like a piece of hardware that could close the cupboards, then that would be helpful. It wouldn't change anything emotionally, but it might be a practical approach. And then in an emotional approach would be, and again, when we have a lot of recurring problems have multiple causes. So I think multiple approaches is the best approach. So one of them could be a practical approach, and then let's say an emotional approach. For one person, it might be adding the practice of meditation. For another, it might be creating a default or a habit of using humor. So, for example, one couple might change their reaction to this by playing a joke or a prank where the husband goes in and he opens all of the cupboard doors so that when she comes in, she sees the absurdity of it, and her anger is now replaced with this feeling of absurdity and humor. For some couples that might work. For like it could be playful.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then again, you find multiple ways to do this, to approach this, so that if that's and how does that create irreversibility? If that's this stronger memory about the cupboards, this time that this husband did this prank, then that's irreversible. You can't undo that memory.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just off the top of my head, trying to come up with second level change ideas.
I like that.
But you see where you might go with it.
Yeah. Instead of being stuck in that rut of every time the cupboard's open, the default wiring in the brain is, hey, go to anger on both sides.
Yeah.
Both sides. Now it's, oh yeah, that's funny. And replacing that with a bigger, stronger memory turns it from anger to humor.
Yes. Thank you for summarizing that well.
Yeah. I like that. And you've had some of your own trauma. You've had some of your own trials. Is that why you got into therapy?
Yeah, you could say that. So I had some traumatic experiences, and I went to a therapist, and I had such a wonderful experience. And I thought, all the stigma that I had been fed around therapy just isn't legit. And I would love for other people to experience this.
What was the biggest stigma that you had going into therapy that was broken when you actually did the sessions?
It's hard to remember now. I more remember the emotion of it, that that stigma was broken for me. I think with all stigma, there was like a social fear. So that was probably the biggest thing, is that I don't want to invite the judgment of others by going to therapy. But then when I had very public trauma, it's like, well, all of that's out of the bag. It's like I have nothing to hide. I very clearly have gone through some difficult things. I'm going to go get help. So,
would you share some of those?
Some of the traumas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't love to give them too much attention. But just for editing purposes, I'll rephrase. For one of the greatest traumas for me was being left and divorce. And then being a single dad. Trying to date as a single dad was also traumatic, because having just gone through a huge rejection, I put myself out there over and over again and faced more rejection around the very thing that I was already sore about.
Yeah.
Am I lovable? Am I desired?
Yeah.
So all of that was very traumatic. And then also, I can go all the way back to childhood. I think it's okay for me to share this, but my mom, she's now in a state of advanced dementia, so I can't ask her, but I think she'd be okay with sharing this story if it would help anybody. my mom grew up with these strong ideals about fostering humility in your children.
Okay.
And so I remember being a young teenager and being unsure about my desirability in the world. And I remember asking, Mom, I could be a model, couldn't I? Very much fishing, right? That's a very insecure young person asking for reassurance. And my mom's response was, yes, for dog food.
Oh,
She just totally burned me.
ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
But that's just an example of the kind of parenting. She was very loving in nurturing in other ways. But we all have some amount of trauma from childhood.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
And even though that's a humorous story and it's like, oof, it's silly, but at the same time it's real.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that happened. That's real. That has an effect.
Yeah.
The person that you look up to the most are your parents, growing up in childhood, and for them to say something like that, that can't not have an effect.
Right.
And so yeah, having the ability to work through those things, to be able to say, hey, it's not just the big traumatic divorce, it's the little traumas too.
Yeah.
It's the little things that, you know, we don't need to get angry at your mom or demean her for
Right.
any behavior. I'm sure she was doing the best she could with the tools she had.
Right.
But sometimes we don't have the best tools.
Right.
And then we have to figure out how do we process that
Yeah.
on the back end.
So as a result, I'm still working through being able to receive a compliment and not immediately say this isn't trustable. There's something else to this. There's another shoe going to drop, or and that is expanded to also to love for me. I find that it's still very difficult for me to accept and trust love. I believe in love. I express love, but it's difficult for me to believe in love shown toward me.
Yeah.
Even though in my spiritual practice, I have belief in perfect love. It's almost like, well, that's perfect love. So everything else it's not of a degree of perfect love. There's perfect love and everything else. These are the kinds of thoughts that I have to struggle with still.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially where you grew up with that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for being vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. I'm happy with the amount I just shared.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. And I know our time is coming to a close. In the Counterfeit Emotions framework, the only authentic emotion that can't be counterfeited is peace. Where does Martin Palmer find peace?
Well, interestingly enough, the first thing that comes to mind is in relationship with God, with the people I love, with my clients, and with myself. How I relate to the parts of myself. And again, that's a good lens. If someone's looking for peace, you might pull out that relationship lens. Have a look at how you relate.
I love that. I truly believe all of this, everything is all about connection.
Mm-hmm.
And when we find connection, we find peace.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you for joining us one more week on the Counterfeit Emotions podcast. We hope that as you find peace, as you work through your traumas, as you dig in to becoming irreversibly untriggerable, that you'll also share this podcast, click the like, click subscribe, click the bell, and share this with those that are struggling today. Share this with those that might need just a little uplift in their lives so that they can also go on the journey to find peace. Until next week.